So I mentioned briefly the other day that blue slips were getting blown up. What are blue slips? They were the last opportunity Democrats had to obstruct any of Donald Trump's judicial appointees. In fact, the one person who's not returned their blue slip at the moment is Al Franken, who is holding his blue slip for an appeals court nominee, David Strass, who is an appeals court nominee in Minnesota. He is on Trump's short list for the Supreme Court. Franken's been holding that blue slip. They are taking the opportunity now with this controversy around Franken. Chuck Grassley is basically saying we're not going to honor the blue slip for these. 9 of Obama's judicial picks were denied hearings under the Obama presidency because Chuck Grassley, that same guy, was in the same position, but he honored it for Republicans at that time. Patrick Leahy also honored blue slips back in the day. I hope he's looking in the mirror saying, I should have seen this coming. There's also and understand too that circuit courts are being filled. Nominees are being filled at a rate that is unprecedented. Basically because Donald Trump does not seem to care about who gets on that court, and nor does the Trump administration. Trump has nominated 4 out of 58. He's already nominated 58 judges. 4 of them have been deemed unqualified. This is by the ABA, which has been evaluating judicial appointments since the 1950s. From 2006 was the last time the ABA deemed any nominee unqualified. That was Michael Wallace of the Fifth Circuit. In the following 10 years, the committee reviewed more than 600 candidates for the federal judicial posts, all of whom were deemed qualified for the bench. Trump has already nominated 4. These are people who have no legal background, essentially. Never tried a case. Maybe you've been a lawyer for 2 or 3 years, written blog posts saying that Hillary Clinton has Parkinson's, that type of thing. The Federalist Society apparently has pushed, and this is an interesting dynamic that people should keep an eye on. This is unstoppable. The Republicans are going to fundamentally change the federal judiciary. These are lifetime appointments. It is not possible for this to change short of maybe the Democrats taking the Senate in 2018, which is highly, highly unlikely. Okay? So people on the left who think about courts and understand their importance, and I imagine on the center as well, are realizing that when Democrats get into office, that they're going to have to court pack in some instances. They're going to have to add 2 courts. I mean, people are contemplating this. I don't know if they're going to have to, but this is one of the things that's being contemplated. So it's interesting because the Federalist Society has now offered a plan to Trump that proposes doubling or tripling the number of federal appellate court judgeships so that they can overwhelm the courts as they exist now. Now, this is ironic because you'll recall that the reason why the filibuster for federal judges was done away with by Harry Reid is because the Republicans refused to even consider the nominations of judges to sit on the D.C. Circuit Court, which is the most important court in the nation after the Supreme Court. In fact, and some would argue that in terms of our operations of our governments, because it handles far more cases, it's even more important. Does the EPA have the authority to do this? Does the FCC have the authority to do that? Can government do X? Can this agency do Y? These are all the questions that the D.C. Circuit Court addresses. Republicans had a majority. They refused to fill the court to its normal capacity of 11 judges. I think it was at 8. And because they had like a 5-3, I think it was, maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, but it's more or less this, advantage. And so Harry Reid ultimately, after I think a year or two, got rid of, maybe it was actually after 4 years, got rid of the filibuster for all judicial appointments short of the Supreme Court. At the time, Republicans were saying 8 is plenty. They don't have enough work to do. There's no reason to give them a full complement of 11.
Yeah, totally.
Now the plan is to double or triple that number there so that Trump can appoint all of those extra judges. And the memo advises members of Congress to argue that this court packing plan is necessary for politically neutral reasons such as overworked courts. After a section captioned, Undoing President Barack Obama's Judicial Legacy. So there's speculation that the reason why the Federalist Society is offering this is so that they can either do it or at the very least get Democrats on record as saying that that it should not be done, so that they could make this argument later that Democrats said they shouldn't be court packing. It's unclear, but people should keep an eye on this because this would be devastating. And then, of course, if you triple the size of these courts, really hard to make the argument 8 years from now that we should triple the size of the existing courts that are now triple the size of what they were in 2017. So keep an eye on this. I know people think you can just get by on the judiciary because you know the name of one of the Supreme Court justices, but it turns out to be not true. Who knew? Who knew? Maddie?
See, it can work.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos